This post isn't for sympathy, it's a warning to anyone in a relationship with a known cheater. Cheating is in my heart. I've done it twice in the past. Once I was the AP with a coworker in a crumbling marriage. I always justified it to myself by saying that I wasn't the one who cheated and their marriage was almost over. They divorced a couple months after our affair ended. He never found out about us. But in hindsight, that was BS. The second instance was then when I met my now wife. I was in another relationship that was a shell of itself. We went from talking all day every day to only once a day at best. And while we were very close, we lived on the same street, we saw each other maybe twice a month. We were both dealing with these things and were emotionally checked out of the relationship. But that doesn't change in the fact that we were still in a
Here's the
relationship
point.
when I met
While I
my
now
current
consider
wife.
both of these to be cheating and wrong on my part, I don't think they were egregious. I love my wife with all my heart. She is my better half and soulmate. And yet I battle every day with that part of me. I have never cheated on my wife, but if a woman flirtatiously smiles at me, odds are I will smile back before catching myself. I have a flirty personality, and sometime I don't even realize I'm doing it until I get that expectant, ask me out already. Look, I have always found an awkward way to backtrack, but I feel guilty for being in these situations to begin with. If a person has it in them to cheat, you won't change them. There is no right person to make them stop. There is nothing you can do. It's all up to them and their self control. Y'all will eventually have arguments, and if their first instinct is to run to someone else, then it's only a matter of time. The thought that one day I will lose this internal battle is one of my biggest fears. It's been years and I haven't, but I'm always fearful and on the lookout for moments of weakness. I don't tell my wife about this struggle because she doesn't deserve to have to worry about something she can't stop. But if I could go back and give her one piece of advice, it would be to not marry someone with a history of cheating because it's a ticking time bomb, even with me working hard to make sure it doesn't detonate. So here I am ranting to y'all, and if I'm able to help someone in the process, then all the better first time posting, looking for some insight. I dated for a couple years. We had been best friends for years before that, and things just fell into place and we started dating. She has a child from another man that I've watched grow and helped raise for a few years. We lived separately, but almost always stayed together. We joked about marriage and about moving in together, but it was one of those jokes that we were both kind of serious about. Well, we did move in together after a year or so. I into her place. It made things easier since she has a kid. The plan from there was to save up some money and get our own place after a year, but from there things fell apart. We argued more often, relations slowed down, the home workload seemed to fall onto me more, which caused more agreements from her because I am always doing dishes and nothing else, even though I did the laundry, vacuumed, etc. And when we had company over, it was awful between us right up to the moment they arrived. I never tried to rush her into anything, especially since we had some conversations about our future together. After about 4 months of our relationship declining, she told me one morning after work that she had something we needed to talk about. Told me she needed space and that she thinks we need to separate. Then she told me about what happened. I'm not going to go into detail, but she had cheated on me. She said that I needed to leave, but she would give me a month or so to find a place to live. I was devastated. I felt like I had just been thrown aside to the trash. Felt like everything I had done and everything we were for the last 2 years dating and 7 years of friendship was a waste. I moved out after a couple weeks of finding my own place. Had to buy all new furniture and kitchenware because I had thrown it out when we moved in together because she didn't want to give up any of her stuff. We tried to remain friends after the breakup because we had been each other's best friend for a long time. It was rough at the start because there were still many arguments because I wasn't struggling without her like she had hoped. Eventually we had gotten that squashed, but every now and then the thought of what she had done and what I had felt came back and reminded me. We were good until recently when it had been coming up on almost a year since the separation and our last big argument happened. Work had been getting me down. As of late, my birthday was right around the corner, and the anniversary of what happened was right behind, so I hadn't been myself. But because I was having a down and depressing couple weeks to her, it meant I wasn't being her friend, and I didn't care about her. We started arguing a lot, and I tried to get us to a point where we would talk about it so we could resolve it. but that didn't happen because she didn't want to talk. She just wanted me to act normal. Well, it eventually came out that I was being reminded of her cheating on me and it was hurting me. She then told me that it was a small mistake and it's not even a big deal. She was upset that we didn't try to work it out between us because it was just a small mistake, and I should have stayed, but I didn't. She had cheated on me with the child's father, who she had done this before multiple times before we were dating. Me
This
and
isn't the
my
first
now
time she has
ex-girlfriend were
cheated on one
together
of her
all of about
partners
8
either.
months. We had an amazing few months together, and there was nothing to suggest what was going to happen next. Before I started dating her, I was trying to convince her to get out of a toxic relationship that she was stuck in because I had a thing for her. Her boyfriend at the time would make horrible comments like, "Don't wear that, it makes you look fat," and "Wow, you really need to go to the gym." She was a pretty slender girl, so these comments didn't make sense and were outright uncalled for. Eventually, he decided that he no longer wanted to be with her, and she was so upset about it. I tried my best to keep her grounded, but it was a lot for her to go through as they had dated for a year and a half before that point. About a week after they broke up, I started talking to her and brought up that I liked her and said that, "I know that it isn't the right time to tell you, but I really like you." She disagreed with me and told me that she liked me too, and we got together. It was a great couple of months. We celebrated Christmas together. We went on an amazing date for Valentine's. But all it took was one day to destroy it all. The morning of August 1st, 2023, I woke up as any normal day and did normal day things. The day before, I had agreed to meet her, but unfortunately my car had broken, so public transport was my only option. The time difference was an hour and a half, so instead of meeting her at midday, I agreed to meet her at 2 o'clock. She agreed that that sounded good and that she had something she needed to do that morning anyway. If only I knew what that thing was. While I was getting ready to leave, she had left the house to meet up with her ex-boyfriend due to how long it would be taking me to get there. Little did I know that they had been talking to each other and meeting up frequently for the best part of 3 months, and I had no idea. After she had seen her ex, I had shown up at the house and we had had something to eat and went upstairs to her room. Sat on her bed watching Peaky Blinders on the Xbox with a bowl of popcorn was a vibe. At about 5:30, she received a message on her Xbox from her ex saying, "Just got home, thanks for today, I love you XX." I had no words. I didn't know what to say. I had my arm around her as I read that message, sat in her bed, 2 hours away from home. I froze for a bit and then moved away from her. I persistently asked to see the messages on her phone that they had been having, and she eventually showed me them. I decided that the best idea was to leave her house and go home, as I couldn't stand to look at her. This was a crazy situation. I read through Reddit stories in disbelief sometimes, and tell myself it can't be real. I, 55F, but then it happens to you, have been in a 14-year relationship with C, isn't as good as 51 Memon. Over the past 2 years, he has slowly been drifting away. We haven't had relations in almost 2 years, and that really hurts. So to make a long story short, here's our issues in a nutshell. Back in 2019, he ended up in the hospital, ended up having some sort of what I can call a seizure. He is a very heavy drinker on top of that. Due to his declining health, he now has severe psoriasis and has an STD, herpes, down there. He said the doctor told him it was from his visit in the hospital, and that when a person's immune system is severely depleted as his was, sometimes this issues that are dormant come out. He swore to me he did not cheat, and I had no reason to not believe him. Slightly doubtful, but believed him. Over the past year or so, he's become very distant. He's gained a horrible amount of weight, still drinks heavily, think functioning alcoholic, and won't come near me. He used to want to please me even if he couldn't do anything at the moment, but even that has stopped. No pressure from me, but I have tried to talk to him. Ask him what's going on, but he always says, "I don't know." That's the entire gist of our conversations. I've asked him if he wants me to leave, and he says no, but does nothing to show me he wants me there. I've asked numerous times, and every time I get shot down. He comes home from work and just sleeps until dinner, eats, says a few words to me, and then falls asleep again until bed. I know it's from his weight, but that leaves me sitting basically alone every night just listening to him snore while I try to watch TV. We live in a small trailer, and that's a whole other story. Weekends are the worst. He does nothing. Moves from his bed, no, we don't sleep together, we both snore, to the couch, and will literally sleep all day, both sat and sun. I work 40 years a week, try to keep the house neat. I do hate vacuuming, but I do it. I would say the house is at least 90% clean at all times. On top of the housework, none of which he helps with, I maintain the yard, which isn't small. All the mowing, lawn sweeping, trimming, leaf blowing, etc. It's tiring. I will admit I get fed up when I'm outside by myself and he's inside watching TV and sleeping. I go to the local bar just to chat with folks and have some sort of friendship since the one with my SO doesn't exist anymore. We had a rather large fight earlier in Sept, and I just begged him to tell me what's wrong and told him I was breaking down from the work and asked why he won't help, and he told me flat out, he pays the bills I should have to help. He pays the fuel and electric, both of which he would have to pay even if I weren't there. I even found out his mom pays every once in a while. Anyways, I pay all my bills, phone, insurance on my own, and buy groceries when I can. He loves junk food, so that's on him. Last week we had another big argument, and I basically told him he's treating me like a roommate and asked again if he wanted me to go. He said nothing, so I loaded up the camper, grabbed the dogs and cat, and stormed out. Not gonna lie, I was mad. Made it about 5 miles, then realized I didn't have the heater nor battery for lights, and we live where it's getting cold, like ready for snow cold. So I turned around and came home after about 15 minutes of being gone. Not a word was spoken. Next day, Saturday, I heat out about 10 waiting for it to warm up a bit. Got working in the yard when he comes out with his backpack in hand, getting ready to leave. I asked where he was going. He said, "Why the fuck do I care?" and drove off. He didn't come home until middle of the day Sunday. This week goes by. He maybe said a half a dozen sentences to me over all the days. Tiny BS, noting of substance, and then this past Thursday
Продовжуй
rolls
наш
around. He had a work
прекрасний
function,
шлях.
and I have been before,
Я
so
не
I
знаю,
know
як
it's
тут знімати.
legit.
Ну, це трохи
He gets
жорстковато.
over late, and he usually gets home late. He was done with his hosting duties. Company does this for customer appreciation. Around 9:30.
Ну,
He walks
попробуй.
in at 11:30 complaining about how he hates being there so late. I asked him when he got finished, and that's when he said 9:30. I made the comment that he probably wouldn't be so tired if he'd come home when he was done. I asked him what he was doing, and he said he and a work buddy, M, went to look at a construction site. I said, "You did what?" And he said it again. He said, "I didn't know we were going to stay so long." He said long ago that with the shape he's in, and the psoriasis and the down there problem, he's not attracting anyone. But his
Всё для вас,
actions
мои
have been very
любимые
strange.
подписчики.
Oh, and he carries his phone everywhere. So am I wrong? Do you think he's maybe chatting someone up? Just looking for thoughts.